of January 3rd, 2024. And Laura, could you please take the roll?
Okay, I have Ellen Daviero, Vicky Michaela, Ashok Ramasubramanian, Simran Uterker, Richard Frontero, and Chairman Strayer. Chuck Petrowski and Chelsea Ratner both let me know they couldn't attend tonight.
Okay. All right. What I'd like to propose is a change in order of the items. We have two discussion items, which are to review RFPs. And since they may concern private information in those RFPs, I'm going to put them to the end of the meeting. And what we'll do is we will discuss it at the end of the meeting and decide how to go forward. If that pleases the
You stop the
committee.
recording and
We'll
then
stop the recording
Yep.
and go. Okay. So we have minutes of December 6th. Has anybody looked at the minutes? Any comments, any additions?
I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything that needed to be added.
Okay. Yeah, no, I thought they were pretty good as well. So does somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes from December.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Seeing no one opposed, the minutes are accepted. Privilege of the floor. Is there anybody who would like to address the board that's not involved with the project? Do we have anybody online?
no.
Okay. So then why don't we move to the EAF assessment? And we have one. This is EAF 2023-07. This is 2890 River Road. It's a 3-lot subdivision. We had a fairly lengthy discussion with the applicant last time. He had submitted a proposal that had 4 lots on it. It's now 3. He told us that's what they were going to do. Would you like to address the committee? And just introduce yourself for the record.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Michael Roman. I'm co-developing the parcel with Ryan Lucy, who's not here this evening, and I have Michael DeSalt, who is our engineer.
Yep.
So, as you know, you're kind of familiar with the property. I'm just here to kind of go over some general things and here to answer your questions that you may specifically have. Obviously, we're looking for a seeker recommendation for planning.
Mm-hmm.
So we currently are at 3 lots for the parcel. One lot will be for my sister, the other lot will be for Ryan, and then the third lot is to be determined at a later date. So really developing it for myself and for Ryan. We've gone through the process, as you've seen. We've done the wetland delineation. In addition to doing the 3-lot proposed, we're granting an easement for the culvert and for the drainage. That's kind of to the right side of the property. So that's something that we talked in our planning board meeting. Not sure. I was not at the last meeting. Ryan was at that meeting. So I'm not sure if that was indicated to the board here, but that is kind of part of that. One of the things that was discussed that I want to talk a little bit was the pedestrian path that goes from Seneca to the park. Currently that's there. It's a stone path. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. The intent is to maintain that as is. We do not want to, at this point, put an easement through there. We just have some concerns, specifically a liability, and really we don't want it to be a path that's really, it's there for the neighbors. They know about it. We want them to use it. We'll maintain it. But we don't want to have an easement or widen it to make it more pronounced. We're kind of worried about security. That is the lot that Ryan's going to live with his family, so he doesn't really want to have people coming through there. Particularly all the time, but definitely can be used for the neighborhood that knows it. And we want to kind of keep it more natural as opposed to, I know it was talked about pavement at some point, and that gets quite involved. So that was just one of the things that I wanted to really kind of talk and make sure everyone understands where we're coming from. And but definitely all on board for providing the easement for the drainage.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have Any additional questions that they have for the applicant?
I could just add one more. Since the last meeting, we had some further correspondence with the Army Corps of Engineers for the
Yeah.
wetland, just proposed wetland disturbance shown in the red hatched areas.
Right.
That permit is forthcoming. So
It is forthcoming, yeah. Okay.
What is going to happen to the wild space, forest space that will be undisturbed by this development?
Are you talking about? You're talking about this area here? It's
Mhm.
going to remain as is. Currently, it's grass as you see it now. It currently is. It's maintained by one of the neighbors, is my understanding. But that's the intent. So there's no construction over in that area.
Well, one of the things that we repeatedly discuss at the CAC is since the town is approaching like what could be referred to as a full build, meaning like every portion that is zoned residential is like getting built up. This being the Conservation Advisory Council, like we have a vested interest in preserving existing green space. So in other words, it would be less desirable for us to see a proposal, say, in 5 years from now, saying, okay, further subdividing those lots for more construction. So I believe I raised the point in a previous meeting about a conservation easement on the remaining undeveloped space.
Yeah, I think it's something that we'd probably, I guess, talk with the attorney about, and we could talk to the town in easement versus a conservation easement. It's our intent not to do anything with that space. The easements provide access for maintaining through there. By the time you factor in the setbacks, it's very difficult to put a house at that point. We talked about this in some of the planning board meetings early on, really early on. So I guess from that standpoint, I guess we just have to understand what's the difference between the two, and really kind of, I guess, get the town's attorney involved with our attorney to see what makes sense.
We have typically done conservation easements before on the overlap. That would, in my opinion, shouldn't be an issue at all.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to it. I guess just want to make sure that, understanding the technicalities of it all, and we can work through that. But that did come up in the planning board meeting. We talked about it. So.
Yeah, one of the challenges that the town faces is that, this subdivision will be here for a very long time. And
Correct.
one of the things we want to ensure is that the open space is preserved in perpetuity, into the future. And, 10, 15 years from now, the landscape may be very different. Someone may want to
Sure.
build in that area or
Yeah,
do
and
something that,
And it could be language
be
within
that.
the easement that talks about that. I guess we can have a conversation on that and see what makes sense. So,
I mean, the technicality is, legally how we word it, that's one aspect. This committee's concern is more of the end result and not the procedure. A conservation easement, as you know, is but one way of protecting open space. There are other things, say, a deed restrictions. I guess my question is an honest and forthright one, like, are you interested in protecting the remaining undeveloped land in perpetuity?
we're absolutely on board with that. We're not looking to develop it. We just got to work out the language of what that is. So.
Laura, when we go through the EAF, is there a way to, like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah,
we-
absolutely. We
well,
can put that in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't it may be more of a planning board question than conservation advisory question, but I don't know if you saw like Matt Yetto and Ray Smith feel that there's more benefit to the town for it to actually be like owned rather than easement. I don't know if you guys have discussed that yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask about
Yeah.
that letter.
Yeah, I guess probably just need to sit down with the attorneys, honestly, because I'm not really sure how that works or deeding it over.
Mhm.
You know, I think from our standpoint, what we talked in some of the plan board meetings is turning that over, whether it's an easement or the property's actually, you know, subdivided and that parcel is part of the town. We didn't really get deep into the weeds on that. I don't know if we should maybe have a off conversation with the attorneys just to see what makes sense and how to go about that.
Yeah, I definitely think we should do it
So-
sooner than later, though,
Yeah.
because if it was going to be deeded to the town, it does show up as like the fourth lot on the subdivision. So you would need Michael to revise
Right.
the subdivision and show like lot 4, you know, to be deeded to the
Yep.
town of Niskuna. And it happens on subdivision plats all the time.
Yeah,
Like one of the things that we haven't really gotten into the planning board either is like subdivisions. Sometimes you reserve parkland for the subdivision and sometimes you pay parkland fees. So it's a fairly standard thing for you guys to put a parcel on a subdivision that gets deeded to
Right.
the town of Niskuna. I actually think it's simpler than easements.
as
And
long
then
as
obviously
it's
you
not
don't.
going to add tremendous time, as you know, we're trying to hit some internal deadlines here. So
Yeah, I mean, I actually think
if
the
if it
fee
speeds it
simple
up,
transfer is
it's
faster.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is in regards to the 80-foot wide drainage easement. Is that the one that was the December 5th?
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
what. Yeah, so I mean, and I don't know if you had a chance to see the letter in the packet.
We did.
It was also
Yeah, no,
in the
we
planning
saw
board
it. I
packet.
just,
Yeah.
again, I think it's, maybe we should just early next week, just set something up to discuss how we approach that, and what makes sense.
Okay, so I just had just a couple of questions. So one, I just wanted to confirm that lot 3 is the one that is has, they're concerned about where the house is going in proportion to where the wetlands are. That is the one that is that someone is going to build right away.
So yeah, lot 3 is Ryan, my partner's house.
Okay, and
Yes.
then lot 2 and 1, are all 3 houses going to be built simultaneously?
2 of them will be simultaneous. Lots 2 and 3.
Lots 2 and 3. And then
Yep.
lot 1 will not be built
Correct.
until,
We're not sure what we're doing, in all honesty.
okay,
Could sit for a very long time. So,
okay. And then,
oh, I'm sorry. Is it lot?
well, lot 1, isn't that where the house is?
is lot 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lot 3 is the one off Seneca, and then,
Yes.
yeah.
Just make sure.
Yes.
Wasn't sure. Yep.
And then the, and, you know, forgive me, but can somebody please specifically point to the gravel?
Oh, the
connection?
path?
The path.
Mhm.
Yep.
Is it marked on here? I'm struggling to see it.
I'm gonna go back to the other map. Hold on, Michael. Because you can see it better here. Actually, you can see it better here, probably.
You go down.
Sorry.
Okay.
This depicts the current stone dust.
That depicts those, okay, and then that is all considered wetlands?
Nope.
No, are a little higher up. Sorry, I'm,
Nope.
The wetlands are right there.
okay, I see it.
So if you could, since we're talking about the path, could you sort of explain your concerns again with this particular path?
The biggest, we're okay with the path as is, and we are proposing to maintain the path as is,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll be maintained by Ryan, who owns lot 1.
Mhm.
We don't want to put an easement through there because that's just going to promote public going through there. I mean, it's literally, you're asking people to cut through your house. We just don't want to promote that and make it more of a thoroughfare coming through. And it's also a liability because you got people that can potentially come onto your property. So it's kind of organic in nature as it is now. The people that live in that area in Seneca know about it, and we're okay with them using it, but we just don't want to make it more than it needs to be.
Yeah, I think I'm going to push back on that a little bit. One of the challenges that we have here is that we want to promote conductivity here. And this was something that was sort of identified this has been a long-term objective for Seneca is to get this conductivity there.
And it exists.
And, well, let me
So-
finish what I have. Conductivity really, from my perspective, means that there's an open path that's publicly available to people who want to use it. We've had challenges in the town in the past, even with public right-of-ways that aren't well-defined, where future residents, I'm not saying Ryan, but again, down the road, someone will buy that property and then there will be we will lose the right there because the town does not have the rights there. So I would really like to see either an easement or that section of the parcel deeded to the town.
An easement is going to be an issue. It's going to be, you even said an easement to where we have the drainage is a little bit more involved as opposed to turning that over. So you're asking us to put an easement there through a property that, of a lot that we have.
We do that, we
It's-
do this,
Every
It's-
day.
it's-
we do this all the time.
It's
All the
extremely
time.
awkward. I mean, there's no easements that go from some of these houses up to the school either. People just naturally
There-
cut across.
Yeah, but from a
It's-
town's
so.
perspective, that creates problems and it
it's
creates future
concerning.
conflicts.
I understand that, but again, if you lived in that house and you had people coming through, I mean, if you go out where the house is
Yeah, I've
proposed,
been
where
there.
that
Yep.
easement is, it's literally right in front of your yard.
You have
It's
four,
very-
you have 4
awkward.
acres on that parcel's 4 acres. That's
it's
a
not.
big parcel. Yeah. Lot 3 is
Can you
4.51 acres.
go to the lot? It literally, can you zoom in, Laura? The path is right off of your driveway, people coming through there.
What I'm saying though is you have, the path is going to be there anyway.
Right.
So,
What's the-
but what I'm hearing you say is that you want to discourage people from using it and you just want the,
I don't want to
Local
promote
community
it
to
more
use
than
it.
rule what it is. I don't want people to park on Seneca and
no
come
one's
through
going
the
to park
park
on Seneca.
that way. We've seen it. I've seen it if there's a big event at the park, people park in Seneca and cut through. I've witnessed it firsthand. So we're okay with the path, but we don't want to put an easement through there.
Yeah, that's not really acceptable because unfortunately that path is not going to, you're going to impose that the future homeowner on that is going to maintain the path and the person after that is going to maintain that path to the standards.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would think you would have more liability with that path as being the homeowner and the one responsible for maintaining that.
Well, That was a recommendation from our attorney.
Yeah,
So
As a planner, I would 100% recommend that you require an easement
Yeah.
on that path.
Laura, I mean,
Yeah, I would. I
It's
completely
just-
agree with Mr. Strayer. We do this.
this is extremely
a-
frustrating because we've talked about so many different things as we went through this project.
It's come up
but this came
multiple
up,
times.
the first time this project was presented before this board, I personally made it very clear that this was an important component of this entire project. And that this issue of connectivity between communities and parks has been a long-term objective. It's in the comprehensive plan in 2013. And we have talked about specifically Seneca, and the town tried to at one time work with the land homeowner in that one parcel there to try to get conductivity there. This was something that was done a long time ago. Unfortunately, it was a mistake. In fact, so, this needs to be corrected. And showing where that path is there, that's not, the path is going to be there. You've already said you're going to keep the path there. All we want to do is make sure that the path is usable by the community for the future. Because it doesn't do us any good that this path disappears in a couple years. There's going to be problems. And we have problems like this even where there is a gravel path and the public has the right of way. I can point to places in the town where there's constant problems. So we're setting a problem up here. So I think the best future is
It's a point of review for every subdivision. It's not
Yeah.
any different between this subdivision and Kelts Farm or any other subdivision. When the town has the ability to create connectivity, that's something they review and require of subdividers. Parklands, multi-use paths, all of that stuff is standard. standard. And when we have an option to make a, you know, an existing path public, that is what a planning board should do. And as a planner, I'm going to recommend that to every single board that we have.
What is the distance, like as a person walks, how much distance in say feet or meters is there between the actual structure of the planned house and the path?
I don't know that.
You can see it here.
Like yeah, I there, but there's no scale, so I don't have a feel for the for the distance.
And I mean, I'm happy to have that conversation with the attorneys as well. The liability for allowing people to use that path without making it public is way worse for the homeowner. That should be a public easement, and if anything happens, the town maintains it. Somebody slips and falls, they call the town. There's no reason that a homeowner should ever own a public path like that. And I agree with Chairman Strayer. When it is nebulous, it has only caused problems in the future. And that is a very standard thing to have a public easement across a path like that.
And Laura, does the town have insurance to take care of falls and slips?
Yeah,
and-
Yeah, we
absolutely.
do that
Once
all
it
the
becomes a town easement, a public path, the town is the one that has
Okay.
all that stuff. And you know, I mean, I would say over the years, you know, people used to be very opposed to like multi-use paths being behind their house. It was going to invite the, you know, the people that they didn't want in their neighborhood into their, you know, into their homes. None of that has ever panned out. I can find studies for you that show that public access
It
along
actually
homes is-
increases the value.
increases
of
property
the
value.
Well,
property.
I don't know if it increases value. I would like to see a study on that, but
Yeah, there
you
are.
have to
There are.
understand the concern of bringing people from a public area through your property to get.
But they're going to do it anyway because you're proposing this path.
Yes.
You can see the conflict that's going to come because people are going to use that path regardless. And some homeowner is going to in the future say, hey, you can't trespass on my property. And we haven't achieved the goal. And that's why I'm pushing on this. I'm telling you right now, this is a very important objective for this town.
Well, I guess, you know.
It was a
we
full
should have had this
recommendation from-
Meeting sooner with the attorneys to talk through this and figure all this logistics out, I guess.
We
Feel free to
brought
reach
it,
out
we
and
brought it
schedule
up
a
in the
date.
beginning.
We didn't discuss this heavily in the plan board meeting, so that's what I'm saying. So from a planning board standpoint,
Well, we discussed, I can't speak to the planning board, but we did speak and bring it up at your very first meeting with us.
It's also
And
been
we
at the
brought it up
planning
every
board.
meeting.
It was a full recommendation from the Complete Streets Committee. It's been
Yeah.
in the agenda statements. It's not a surprise.
Laura, it didn't come up in detail. I don't know what to say, so.
I mean-
Planning board meeting.
When we write lists of things that we're discussing and it's an easement in the corner and that's been on our list of things forever,
I just.
we haven't heard a pushback on it until this meeting.
Yeah, this is the
So-
first time I've heard of
We've never
pushback.
talked about an easement for that.
We have talked
that
about this path
Yeah, we absolutely
multiple
have.
times.
Yeah.
And
I'm
this is
sorry,
the
I
first
don't
I'm hearing
remember
of any
talking about it. I
conflict.
know we talked about it for the drainage easement, but we never talked about the easement for that path.
I mean, I
Oh.
apologize if for some reason there's a communication issue, but I can.
I'm just a little caught off guard because like I said, we've always talked about the easement for the drainage.
Yeah, I feel caught off guard as well because I feel like we've discussed this path like pretty much every meeting. So I mean, maybe it's just a
The path we
communication
have, but
issue.
not an easement for that path.
We
It's
discussed
always been an
actually
easement.
increasing it
Oh.
to
Yeah.
a standard bike path.
Yeah,
We did have that discussion.
yeah. I mean, I'm just
But not an easement.
I'm not
Well-
understanding the disconnect, but
Well, clearly there's a disconnect. So what's a good way to move forward at this
Well,
point?
so I mean, it is in one sense it's fine for the applicant to say I don't want an easement there. That's their right. In another sense, it's fine for the board to say the only way we're going to make a recommendation is to have an easement, and then it gets sorted out. I mean,
one of the recommendations we could do is we could just table it until this gets resolved.
Well,
Okay.
listen, so we spent a lot of time and effort into this project. I don't think that's fair to say that we're going to table until this gets resolved. In order for it to get resolved, we have to get the attorneys in the room and work through it.
I don't think it's going to be
So
a big
if
issue.
we can do that in a manner and it makes sense, and that's the goal of basing the recommendation, then we meet that recommendation. But I don't think it's fair for us to have to go figure this out and then have to come back. As far as you know, this has kind of been ongoing. We're trying to move forward. get this thing
I understand, I
happening.
understand your situation.
All right.
You have to understand our situation. We are looking and we are representing the town of Niskayuna and the residents of Niskayuna. And one of the big objectives is the conductivity, and that's a very important part of where the town needs to
Understand.
be.
And that part is true because the town is going through the comprehensive planning process. And this is an issue that comes up, right? And, permit me to bring up a delicate issue, right? You mentioned that this, people who are in the know get to use the path anyway, and you'd like to keep it that way. Oftentimes, from that opinion, it's a slippery slope to saying, well, minorities and people of color are not welcome, right? And, that's not where we want to go.
I don't know. Okay, but I don't want to go there. But all I'm saying is, if that's if that's what you guys are looking for, that should be part of the recommendation. I shouldn't have to go and work to secure the easement to then come back to the board to meet that criteria.
From my
That should
opinion,
be a condition based on your recommendation.
well,
to-
from my view on this is without that conductivity, we will lose access to that park for the residents, and that's going to
I understand
create
that's part of
a
your condition, wouldn't it
hardship.
be?
Well,
I mean, you can do a conditional secret recommendation that literally says
it has to happen.
it has to happen or the secret declaration is null and void.
All right,
That's
and
a
then
conditional
we have to
secret.
work out that detail with the
Are
town.
you sure about that?
Yeah, you can do a negative declaration, a conditional negative declaration, or a positive declaration. Those are your three options. You guys almost never do a conditional declaration. They're more complicated, but you could do that if you wanted to do that.
So I'm just going to say that. So, this definitely, has been, a longer process. You've come before us, but I will say that last month, I was traveling and I was trying to read this, but one of the reasons why I said I wasn't ready to go to, make any declarations on this is because the information wasn't updated. And you were going from a 4 parcel to a 3 parcel, and the information just wasn't answered. And that was why, I had said, I can't make a decision on something that I don't have. So I know for sure that that's really what we talked about last time. But I do know that the month before that is when we discussed the easement.
I know, and I'm looking at my notes right now. I know that on the 9/6/23 Conservation Advisory meeting, it is in the notes that I asked for a multi-use path to be included in the plan connecting Seneca Road to River Park. So we know that in September we asked for that. And if I go back earlier in my notes, I don't have all of them there, but I can tell you right now, in that particular meeting, we definitely asked for a multi-use path that would provide access to Seneca Park. So,
And I don't disagree with that. It's just that the
Well,
easement to that.
but we don't have that. And
Don't have
saying
what?
that the homeowner is going to maintain a private trail is not a multi-use path.
And
Okay,
it does have equity issues. I agree
Yeah,
with the show.
we need
It's
to
not a
do
road
the
you want to go
easement,
down,
so-
but you
we
have
have-
to. If you don't have a public access, then it's up to someone who they allow over the path, and it isn't equitable.
Okay, but if I guess what I'm struggling with is that there's a path, we can provide the path, we got to work out how the easement is, just as for the drainage. So if that's something that should be part of your condition to the planning board, for us then to have to work out with them and the attorneys.
I think that's fine. I think what they're frustrated with is they're hearing you say no easement.
I was not aware that we need to provide an easement for that.
I mean, I'm just
We were looking
looking.
at the
Yeah.
easement for the drainage. So
So
we, it's just, I like to sit down with your attorneys and try to figure all this out. It's a little different because of how it's on this one property versus the other drainage easement. It was a lot cleaner.
yeah, it's at the board's discretion. They certainly can do a conditional easement. I disagree that it's the first time it's come up.
No, it hasn't.
But
Come up multiple times.
I'm just looking in the agenda statement. It's written in the agenda statement multiple times too. So it's been documented that the easement for the multi-use path has been discussed multiple times. But I mean, I'm hearing that it's new for you guys and you want to sit and understand it. It's obviously something that's being said. You're hearing that it's extremely important, and I'm telling you, the Complete Streets had a meeting too, and they made a recommendation that that be a requirement of the subdivision as well. So it's not just coming from the Conservation Advisory Council. I do believe it's been discussed at the planning board, and they're also in favor of it. So I really want you to just intake that information now, and then
I'm
this
here.
board can do what they need to do.
We just got to sit down, I think, and just work through it and understand how we go about it. It's a little more trickier. You even said an easement, even for the drainage, is a little more trickier than just doing the conservation one. So just need to figure out what makes sense.
Well,
on
the
how
other thing to do is just deed that corner to the town.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what we're saying is it could be an easement or it could be a deed, but what we need to hear from you guys is, yep, we understand that that needs to be public access.
And if that's the case, then yeah, we'll have to figure that out. I'm being totally honest. We're providing a path. I didn't realize that a easement had to be provided at that path. I know there was for the drainage. I know we talked about doing it a couple different ways. I'm sitting here telling you, we'll try to figure that out. But I need a recommendation for you guys to go to planning so we can move this thing along. We put a lot of time and money into this, and I can't keep doing that if I don't know if I'm going to get the support I need to move it to the next checkpoint.
So if I'm hearing you right, hypothetically, if the CAC were to make a conditional recommendation that the multi-use path will be like open to anybody in the public, it can be publicized, published on the town website with like amazing publicity, or the land itself, that little corner deeded to the town so that anybody and everybody can access that at any time they like, you'd be okay with such a conditional recommendation?
If that's the condition, then we will meet that. Just need to figure out how that easement, because it's in with that driveway, is all going to tie in so that it's done correctly.
Chairman, he says if that's a condition,
So-
he'll meet it. But I will follow the
So,
recommendation of the chairman here. He has
what,
way more
um,
experience.
Does anybody else see any other issues with this proposal?
I want to go back to the original
Well,
point.
other than what you raised
Oh,
with the
sorry.
easement.
So I guess my, just, I'm basing this off of, what Prime has given, but it's it's just the level of water, and the first floor elevation and the basement and the water. So it looks to me like that is lot 2, which will be your home.
Yeah, and actually, that's a really good question. Mike can talk to a little bit about that if you like, because part of that newer analysis that was submitted for the 100-year was addressed. You want to, because I think that's your question, right?
Yeah, well, it just says, they find it acceptable. It can be confirmed through the town building permit inspections during construction. So I'm, speaking from as someone who owns I live in Niskuna. I live in a house that is built into a hill, and my house is from 1950s, and I have drainage, dips, but okay, I'll listen. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I understand. I'm also a resident of Niskuna and very familiar with the soils in this area and stuff. So Mike, I think, can talk about this because I'm very, very comfortable, and I think Mike will make you understand a little bit clearer.
Yeah, so his Prime's question was about past water intrusion on the existing house. And
Yes, and I think just future houses, because you are now diverting more water. You're taking something that didn't have any. It was all pervious. I mean, so it was all the water was going in or moving through, and now you're creating more flow.
yeah,
So anytime you do that,
So lot 1 and lot 3 are much higher than lot 2.
Yes.
So lot 2, we set the first floor elevation at
297.
297. So 8 feet below that would be the basement floor elevation, which is, I think we have it written on there. It's
270.
like 291 or 292. So that's a foot above, that basement floor elevation is a foot above the modeled 100-year flow backwater from the 42-inch culvert at River Road.
Okay,
And that's assuming that the issues at Seneca are taken care of and that problem is pushed down to River Road. That's
Okay.
the worst case scenario. Nothing is improved at River Road. That's a 100-year flood, I
Okay.
guess you could call it the backwater flood elevation. So
Okay.
the basement floor is a foot above that. So the house will be constructed with modern technology of under drains, waterproofing, and a lot of times if there's an issue with any kind of backwater action on a foundation drain or anything else, we put a backwater valve that's rated for gravity flow and can resist up to 70 feet of water.
okay.
Um,
And so and what about, has just the other residents that live on that property, their homes are all perfectly fine? They don't have water issues? Because I do know that the water comes from like Iroquois down.
Correct, yeah, the water does come
And
down.
they just are doing construction in Iroquois and they're putting up more,
So one of the comments in the process we worked through with Prime and the
Right.
town was to say that the addition of these houses won't make any of the drainage issues at Seneca Road, the on-site wetland, or the 42-inch culvert any worse than it is today. And that's where we have gone above and beyond the town code and have bioretention at each lot to offset any of that peak discharge from the properties.
Okay.
So we've basically removed, as far as the culvert at River Road or the on-site wetland knows, those houses, the
Okay.
drainage conditions will not change from what they are today to when they're built.
Okay.
And that's through Prime's letter, their recent letter, they agreed with our analysis and our design.
Okay. All right. And then I guess my only last question was just was the wildlife corridor that, and I saw that I read through that, there's about the no significant animals, through there. I just was curious by looking at that map that goes across, there is still a bit of a path for them to go. That was my only other thought.
Yeah, anything within the wetland border shown there, besides the red, will remain untouched from this development.
Okay. So, Chairman said those were my concerns.
Okay.
It was just
Did
that.
you have any other? You good? Okay. I'm just making sure that if we do a conditional negative deck, it doesn't set other things into motion that are going to have unintended consequences for all the parties.
So a condition negative declaration is a form of negative declaration for unlisted actions only, which this one is. And it's appropriate when the lead agency concludes that a proposed action may have a potentially significant adverse impact on the environment, but the impact can be eliminated or adequately mitigated by conditions imposed by the condition.
Yep.
Yeah. And so use of the condition negative declaration acknowledges that without imposition of conditions by the lead agency, the action may have potentially significant impacts. But in situations where those impacts are readily mitigated or avoided, you can use the condition negative declaration to approve with the enforceable conditions. And typical examples are like requiring a landscaping berm be built between a public road and a parking lot to screen or buffer, requiring the siting of a parking lot be moved from the eastern side to the western side. So I think requiring
so
an
we're
easement is
in
very
that, yeah.
typical. Yeah, I'm comfortable if you guys want to do that. I think it's a very strong way to
I defer to the chairman's judgment on this.
Okay, I think that I would propose we do a negative deck with the requirement that that multi-use path be put in
As a
either
public easement.
as a public easement or a,
Deeded to the town.
deeded to the town. Whatever
Understood.
works
Yep, and
for
we'll-
everybody.
We can meet early next week. We'll start to break down what makes sense.
What about the stuff that we initially discussed about the existing?
We
greensway?
we can make that recommendation as well.
Okay.
And you also still have the recommendations from Ray, also from the.
Yeah.
Asking that the land be deeded to
Yep.
us, you mean? Yeah.
So why don't we go through the form, Laura?
Yep, I'll pull it up.
So while you're doing that, so it was, I believe it was the tree council too that they went through the lots as well and
So Tree Council has not walked the property yet. What they've decided to start doing, because it's been challenging to walk the lots before the limits of clearing are fully decided, is that they wait until the limits of clearing can be flagged by a surveyor, and then they can walk and say, this tree's close enough to the limits of clearing that you have to keep it.
okay,
But they have not walked the property yet.
okay.
The planning board walked the property and noted that there's some, in the uplands, there's some nice trees.
Yeah. Yeah. I also, it wouldn't hurt to also just as, a resident of Niskuna know what is a invasive species as well.
I think you looked at that, right? No. We did identify the limits of clearing, so, on our map. So, and that hasn't changed.
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of depends on the weather, I guess, at this point. But if you have a surveyor kind of put a flag occasionally where the limits of clearing are, the tree council can go in and take a look. What's been complicated is that they'll find a beautiful tree that's right where the home is, and it's been kind of a tough thing for them. So we're trying to work on just the limits of clearing, and you'll do what I think it's in the agenda statement or had been sent, but you do have to do a street tree planting plan. So each of the lots have to have a certain number of street trees.
Yeah, I think we
planted.
need, each lot needs 2 trees.
It's
Right.
2 trees or every 60 feet, whichever is more. So some of these will probably need more than 2 trees.
That's fine.
I think lot 1 and 2 will have 2 trees and then possibly 3 on, depending on how much
Yeah.
is disturbed, I guess, along lot 3.
And you're
so-
sticking to native trees?
Yeah, proposing native trees, maples and stuff like that. I'm not opposed to adding in landscaping.
The street trees are actually added in the public right of way because they become publicly owned.
Along river, it's going to be a little tricky, but we can definitely accomplish that on Seneca. So,
Because of the drainage ditch?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be almost impossible there, but
That's why
inbound and on Seneca, you can.
Yeah, that's why you just need to be careful of the invasive species right there.
Yeah.
And then I also,
the
so I
power
would just
lines, too.
defer to the trees that the tree council recommends.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really specifically have a preference type, so,
Yeah, we're just looking for more native for,
yeah. But we have our clearance set, so, I mean, it's simple. We can throw some flags out there, and it's pretty easy right now to see. Everything's been pretty much dormant.
great, thank you. Appreciate that. Flags will be set.
Okay, why don't we go through the questions?
Okay.
Second, just give me that.
I feel like might need more space to write on a negative declaration, but we'll give it a try. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulation?
Yeah, I would say no to that question.
Isn't that the multi-use path adopted?
Oh, is that the multi-use path in there?
Yeah, the adopted land use
Yeah,
plan
you're
zoning
absolutely right.
regulations,
Okay.
like that's
Yeah, I
the
thought
whole.
there was another thing in there.
So then the answer would be yes, but it can be
It can
mitigated
be
by
mitigated. Yeah,
adding easements
Yep.
in.
Adding either an easement or deeding that little trapezoid portion to the town.
oh, I see, this is the short form, okay.
It's the short form.
Okay, that's,
Minor subdivisions are unlisted, major are.
yeah. It was my bad, thank you. Yeah,
Okay, so just to be very detailed, our adopted land use plan requires connectivity for their subdivisions. So this plan would be in conflict without a
yeah, and I would also say that
public access easement.
the town has previously tried to get conductivity in this area.
Chairman, when you say conductivity, do you mean connectivity?
Didn't I say conduct?
Yeah,
Connect,
yeah,
Connect-
conductivity is an engineering term
Yeah.
for, thermal and electric.
thank you. Conductivity.
Right there.
I don't draw a distinction between electrons and people.
And peeps.
Okay.
Okay. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
I think this goes back to the point that I mentioned about the remaining undeveloped land and like a similar thing about either deeded to the town or a conservation easement on the remaining undeveloped land.
So do you want to do no or small with a recommendation of the conservation easement, or do you want to say large and requiring a conservation easement?
A moderate to large impact and requiring an easement. When we say conservation easement, it could be a deeded to the town as well, like that goes without saying.
Okay. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
I,
Disagree, but yes.
I'm sorry?
Nothing.
No, I think we're okay with that.
Will
Laura,
the-
will you expand on those reds or like or is that
I
all we get to see?
in our recommendation, these are my notes. But
Okay.
in our recommendation, I actually do a Word document,
Okay.
and I will go into the detail that we discussed on the first one. Yeah,
Okay.
these are my notes.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Will the proposed action have an impact on environmental characteristic that caused the establishment of a critical environmental area?
No,
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
This was the one that I was thinking we would put on.
yeah.
So, because you have an existing path there now and the access needs to be preserved.
But I think you could approach that from the standpoint that that connection could be removed.
Right, so
Yeah.
that would be,
I mean, Ryan could decide that he doesn't want that path and take it away unless you
Yeah,
have
it-
the easement.
It's
Unless
in
it has an
both.
easement,
It's in
yeah.
both,
in-
and that's the mitigating.
yeah, so the proposed action without the easement could result in the loss of a walkway, which would be a negative impact. And so the access would have to be preserved.
And I don't mean to imply that Ryan would do that, but I think we have to think about future owners, like Dart said.
Agreed. It's just going to be messy. I will clean it up later.
Okay.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy, or does it fail to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
I think that's small.
Yeah, no to small.
Yeah.
Have you guys? I know we usually ask like the commercial developers, but are you guys proposing any solar for the new single family homes?
Possibly, I think typically when we design houses, we provide for that down the road, whether it's a conduit and all that type of stuff, but
For the roofs?
for the roofs. But in all honesty, I would have to do the analysis. I'm not really sure. So,
So
We
usually-
would encourage
But
you.
that's
to-
what
We
We would
encourage it.
encourage you
Yeah.
to do that.
and just, I'm an architect, licensed architect, so typically we have provisions for conduits and that type of stuff. But usually, and the roof design loads are calculated, but it's usually once a house is sold or whatever, it comes down to the owner if they
Owner.
want.
Yep.
So.
Another thing you could do as a builder is to put in the electrical work to have EV charging in the home
in the garages.
Yeah,
garages.
Vicky,
yeah, we.
pull your thing
we
down.
have a-
No, pull it down. You're so quiet.
Oh,
There's no way
yes.
Trish will
Yeah,
ever
I
hear you say
EV,
that.
My conductivity, yes, definitely.
We'll probably, yeah. Well, so what we do is we put a PVC conduit up to the roof so that we can run, and then we add and make sure we have the ability to, provide a charging station within in a
Yeah.
garage or even outside. I'm a little not on board with, and there's some regulations come into play with charging inside and stuff like that. So,
It's okay in your.
Oh.
Whatever works.
but the provisions are being added, and we're making sure the panel sizes can accommodate things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do a lot of it on the commercial side.
Will the proposed action action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment utilities?
So I'm definitely gonna just speak up here. If you choose to use pesticides on your lawn, it affects the water. You're right there. So I'm just saying, as a person who, it's not good for kids, pets, people, groundwater. There's really nothing good from a pesticide ever, other than maybe you don't get a dandelion. But I would strongly encourage you to look to mitigate those with non-pesticide methods, especially your location to how close
Right.
you are to the river.
I'm going to put that actually under 9, Ellen.
Okay. Because there's
So I would say that the answer to those two questions on 7A and B are low or no.
Yeah, okay. Because on this one, they're not connecting into a sewer line that is at capacity.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's issues with the water line either. That did not get.
right. And there's, this is just perhaps my ignorance, but the town realigning their water districts is just in name only, not in not changing any function.
Right. The town actually already has consolidated water districts. They're currently consolidating their stormwater districts.
Okay.
It won't change the way that they're managed, but it does help the way that they distribute funds in order to do improvements.
That's what I thought. I thought
Yeah.
it was a
Yep.
paper thing. Okay.
So will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
That was mitigated no, right?
Yeah,
No,
they
Yeah,
finished
the-
in Bow and
they
a no
looked
effect,
at
and
it,
they did the
yeah.
phase
Yeah,
one.
I
assessment.
saw the letter in the packet.
I'll just make that note.
I think we all agree the house is not historic.
Yeah, it's in bad shape.
I've seen worse ones rebuilt in Detroit, that's for sure.
Yeah, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? I think that's where we usually do our pesticide note. I think we sometimes also have other notes.
Yeah,
in
I
this one?
think the biggest concern with this aspect was the water, and I think I'm okay with where we are with the water.
the level of water and,
Well, I mean, it's a bad situation, but the fact that the town, we've worked with their engineers and we have a solution
right,
to that.
Yeah,
We
we have
have,
the rain
um,
gardens too
Yeah,
that were added
yeah.
for
yeah.
the last revision.
Yes, we have taken something and we have used our our brains and figured something out.
Yeah, and I think the detention the rain gardens, right, that you added, are they rain gardens?
Retention areas.
They are bioretention areas, so it's a little bit more than a rain garden, right?
Yeah, they have a filter media.
On the underneath
Yeah.
that discharges into the wetlands or into the swales.
The river, they'll discharge the lots 1 and 2 will discharge to the
To
roadside ditch,
to the swale that goes to the wetlands.
which won't go to wetlands. It'll actually go to.
Oh,
It
it'll
goes
actually.
along river.
Okay,
So it's not going to go to the
but
wetlands.
won't it eventually go into that culvert?
It'll go into
Yes,
the culvert,
yeah.
but not into
It doesn't go into the wetlands.
on the property. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Lot 3 does enter the wetland on the outlet.
On the backside. Okay. The with those, we've seen rain gardens a couple of times. We require that they have as-built, and we require that they're become like part of the property, so that in the future, if a future landowner does fill them in, the town can go out and make them reestablish them. So when we're having that legal meeting, let's make sure we know how those retention ponds are governed in the future.
We have those shown too.
Yeah,
On
they're in
the-
your plans. That's
Yep.
good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw them.
And I think just the last thing I'm just going to say about the pesticides is that as a town, we have to follow the standard that New York State has set. But just because the standard New York State has set is high for the amount of pesticides that people can use, it doesn't mean that we can't then again use our brains and our intelligence to mitigate, just like we're building rain retentions and we're doing all this stuff, that we can pick and choose the correct things to have in our lawns or lack thereof lawn in order to be able to make it a better community space for our families and our pets. That's my
My sister has
speech.
3
Okay.
kids, so she's not big into the pesticides. So.
Perfect.
Laura, do you want to move on to the next question?
10 is, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
Yeah, and I think we just had the discussion on that as well. I mean, I think the easement or the deeding of the wetland area to the town, that's.
The town is, so I'm putting the protection for the private retention ponds in the future not to be filled in, and drainage easement to the town is important.
Yep.
And the drainage study, I think, was really critical to this too.
Mhm.
Oops. Study critical
And that
to
includes
this finding.
the letter from Ray and
Letter from highways and engineering.
yes, please.
I wanted to quickly second what Ellen said about pesticides. They really are pretty bad. And I'm a scientist and I like to distinguish between science and opinion. So when Ellen says that pesticides are damaging our environment, it's hard, repeatable science, and it causes bladder cancer in dogs and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in humans. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And the cost that we pay for this pristine green carpet looking lawns is like cancer, it's.
AstroTurf, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
We go on.
So the last question is, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
I think we have covered that.
Yeah, I think we've done that.
We did not actually specify wildlife corridors here anywhere in Georgia.
Please do that.
We'll probably, so
I think we add that with the,
adverse change to natural resources.
yeah, and the fact that we have this open space that's going to stay open, that I think achieves that goal.
Okay, so we'll just say wildlife corridors are important
We should put that in the narrative, I think.
for this area.
Mhm.
So the preserved open space should protect them.
And Laura, when you type this up, could we send this? to
So I
the
actually
committee?
listened to the minutes. I use my notes and I listen to the minutes, and I'll
Okay.
put what was verbally said as well as my notes into a narrative that goes to the planning board.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I propose that we give this project a conditional negative deck based on the conditions set forth in the letter to the planning board. Again, really stating that this easement and right-of-way is critical to this negative deck.
Yeah, so your findings are essentially that there's a significant environmental impact.
Yeah.
If
If that doesn't go through.
that to the potential walkability of the neighborhood.
So if the
without
conditions are
approving it.
not met, does the negative declaration become void?
Yeah, I mean they're enforceable,
Yeah.
Okay,
but the planning board has to adopt them.
okay.
Okay, I made a motion. Do we have a second on the floor?
I will second it.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay.
You should ask if any abstention.
Are there any abstentions? I saw everybody raise their hand.
Okay, thank you. I'm on board.
Okay, reach out for your meeting.
Yeah, we'll set something up early next week.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Great. Take care. Thank you.
Okay, why don't we move to the climate smart section? And we can go through that, and then what we can do is then we can discuss the RFPs.
Okay, so for Climate Smart, I actually am just deferring to our later discussion for the RFPs.
Okay,
I think that getting the greenhouse gas inventory going and the climate action plan
Mhm.
will really get us started on a lot of our things that we have to do to become climate smart. So our goal would be to select a candidate for the greenhouse gas inventory tonight and award them at the end of the month in January.
okay. Natural resource inventory, we'll have that discussion as well. Pesticide outreach, do we have anything to report?
No, but I'll tell Ellen asked me very, very nicely to make sure that that stuff gets back up on the website because it did get removed when we transitioned our
Oh, yeah.
website. So that
Mhm.
needs to be a priority along with our composting and
Yep.
our NRI and our
Quiet.
quiet Niski unit. I'm gonna write them all down.
Composting, it's all in your.
Yeah, all that stuff needs to get back on, right?
So, yeah.
Okay, so then we have the LOMO biodiversity initiatives. I think,
So Lomo, we're just waiting for we're waiting for the spring to plant those
the
flowers.
flowers, yep. Mhm.
We have the
Right,
seeds.
you know.
Clark had some excellent suggestions, so I'll start moving on those.
Yeah,
Here.
because your next step is to take it one next step.
Yes,
So
to the
you sent that email
maintenance
to all of us, and then
department
Clark had some really good
and- yeah.
comments. Yep.
So, yeah, definitely going to move forward with that pretty soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Clark.
And
Yes,
the
thank you so much.
composting,
So in
where are we
regards to
with
the
that?
composting, there was supposed to be, we're waiting for another meeting, but a site has been picked at the senior center.
Mhm.
So, but we need to have the meeting to confirm that and then to set the date for when that will open.
Okay.
So, fingers crossed that it happens this month.
Good. And the wildlife corridors?
So I think the wildlife corridors, Georgia wants me to still work on those on some maps that we could
Okay.
kind of regularly refer to. So I need to sit down and get those ready for her. And to Ellen's point, once we have those maps, we could even put them up on our website, just
Yeah,
showing
we
kind
should.
of general corridors that we want to protect for wildlife.
Yeah, we should all look at them just to see, make sure that we have, got them all.
Yeah, so Georgia, when she was reviewing them, she looks at them very holistically. So I mean, you're literally looking at where the Mohawk and the Hudson River connect,
Mm-hmm.
and like moving kind of up into the Adirondacks. Like that's
Mhm.
the type of holistic wildlife corridor she looks at. I
Okay.
still think it'd be useful to actually take a look at land cover in the town of Niskuna and map land cover areas like at a finer grain
Mhm.
detail.
Yeah.
Because I think that type of map would show more the wildlife corridor that we were talking to tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we, maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, we were walking in the Leisure my husband and myself, and right in the middle of like in the river was a turtle. He was this big, but he was upside down.
Ooh.
Mm.
So we had to flip him.
Was it like a snapping turtle?
I would say, fingers crossed that he made it. I mean, he was like, when we first poked him, he wasn't really moving. So, but once we put the stick there, he kind of helped us turn himself over. So, but he was very old and very big for that. I've never seen one that big in there.
Wow.
So I don't know how I don't know if the river was moving. I don't know how for a turtle that old to get flipped like that. I don't know how it happened. 'Cause it doesn't usually happen in there because they've been there for so long. So they do exist here, and we should be cognizant of it. So that's my little story.
Okay. So what I'd like to do now, if we have nothing else, I do want to publicly thank you for taking the initiative to write the memo to GE.
Mhm.
I really appreciate it because you really got the ball rolling on this, and I'd like to thank.
Well, we should
Everybody
follow
else.
up in a month if you don't hear.
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, the nice thing about actually the planning board really embraced that recommendation and put a timeline in their resolution.
Okay.
And some of that's thanks to Clark because he helps draft them and he, helped set that timeline. But I think they have 6 months, right, Clark? Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't see
Yes.
the final version. Did it get sent to us? The final version that went out to the?
I have it also.
Oh,
I didn't. I mean, we sent in our stuff, but
yeah. I don't know that.
Yeah,
the-
Laura sent it
did
via
I
email.
copy everyone
everybody.
on that,
I
or
don't know.
only you guys? So when I did,
maybe I was out of town and it was one of the emails I missed.
Okay,
I'll go
I
back
can-
and look.
Yeah, we can send it to you.
I can double check when I sent it. I copied the entire planning board because it ended up actually being a planning board condition.
Okay.
But if I didn't copy the whole CIC, I can resend it.
Okay.
Oh, the memo became a planning board
Yes, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's a planning board condition. So they're actually out of compliance with the
Nice.
zoning if they don't.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's what's
Sweet.
so
You
nice.
got teeth.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Which you guys, yes,
There's
thank
a
you, Joseph.
representative from the planning board sitting in the audience, giving a thumbs up.
No, that was good because that was a quick turnaround, and I do
Okay.
appreciate everybody's effort to get get it done. So that worked out really well. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is move to discuss the proposals, and to do that, I would like to.
So I think you would do
Well,
an
yeah.
adjournment, and then what we can just say for the public is that we will be discussing the RFPs, and they could contain private
Yep.
information, and the results of our chosen person will be available to the public and noticed at the town board meeting at the end of January. And Clerk, if you want to stay on, if you had opinions on the RFP, do you just stay on, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So what I would like to do is I'd like to call an adjournment to the meeting.
Do you have a second?
Okay.
Richard seconding.
All in favor? Say aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
No.
We're good. Okay, so let's adjourn the meeting, and then what we will do is we will discuss the RFPs. We're doing this because they may contain some private information. We want to respect that, and we, like Laura said, we will post the selected RFPs, for review and make that available.
Okay, Jed, you can go ahead and stop the recording.
Is it okay if I just introduce myself?